If you've been around the channel for a while, you will know that I don't normally do flight simulator product reviews. But when Rowsfire reached out and asked if I'd like to test their new A107 A32X Max lite overhead panels for Microsoft Flight Simulator, I literally couldn't wait to test this out. In today's video, we're going to be putting the full functionality of this panel to the test in the FlyByWire A320. But first, let's start with a quick installation guide and unboxing. But spoiler alert, right up front, this is exceptionally high quality, and you will be shocked at how incredible this is. Building a home cockpit usually means emptying your wallet or coding for hours, but not today. Welcome back to Next Level Sim Gaming, and we're going to be unboxing and having a look at the Rowsfire A107 version 3.1 A320 overhead panel. In the box you have the QR code and you also have the instruction manual, as you would expect. We're going to be taking a deeper dive into the inbuilt software that comes with this, and also we're going to be looking at the accompanying software that makes it easy to connect to both Microsoft Flight Simulator and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. But this is exceptionally high quality, as you can see here. Now let's dive in and take a look and see how to install this. During that section, I showed you that there is a QR code that you can use to download the software, but I actually found it easier to actually head over to the Rowsfire website and actually download it directly from there. And there's a reason for this, because of course if you have a QR code, of course you would scan like you're normally using your mobile, but of course we're going to be using a computer to set things up, and I'll leave a link in the video description to exactly where you need to go to actually set things up. Now also, of course, this is literally a plug and play product, but I actually did find it quite difficult because I haven't actually utilized anything like this in Microsoft Flight Simulator before. Really, as far as I've got with accessories, has been really the Tobii eye tracker and obviously the controls that we used to obviously navigate and fly with. So I'm going to run through things from the beginning and show you how I installed everything. So the first place we need to head over to is to the support tab at the top of the Rowsfire website, as you can see here. And if we then look down, we've got a number of different options available to us. First of all, we've got the Rowsfire app, which is said to be the easiest way to get things up and running within the actual game. But I actually couldn't get the Rowsfire app working, unfortunately, so I found it easier to go down this route. First of all, if we move down to the section here, which is called the Mobiflight user guide, and you can see that the Mobiflight section comes up here. And then if we look at the Rowsfire Mobiflight configuration files, and then we click on download files, it then brings up another page here. Scrolling down, we're obviously looking then for the A107, and we are looking for the version 3, which is of course the latest version, which we are using here. And you can see we have all the configuration files that are available to download from here. Click on download, and then you can see it then brings up a Google Drive section here. And what we then need to do to download this, simply click on download. You can see in the bottom right hand side here, it comes up with a zipping file section, and it takes some time to zip the file, and then once it's downloaded, that will then complete, and you'll see that appear just at the top, just up here. So once we've downloaded the documentation, we can see it appears in a zipped file. You need to use either WinRAR or some other extraction software to open this. Double clicking on that then opens up and contains the contents. If we then double click again, you can see that it contains a series of instructions within here. Of course, I would recommend obviously reading the instructions, but it's going to talk you through the process that I use to get everything up and running with this, and it's actually relatively simple, although it did cause me some confusion initially. First of all, you need to double click on this, and you need to install the first piece of software, which is the FSUIPC7. And I'm not going to do this again because I've already installed it, but you would simply run the application. It's actually recommended that you actually do drop the Windows firewall, which I did do to do this. I would imagine that's due to some confliction with the software when you're flashing the firmware on there. But I installed the FSUIPC7. It actually prompts you if you are wanting to install it for both Microsoft Flight Simulator or either Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. I actually ran it twice because it actually does then create a desktop shortcut, which I'm going to show you just here. So there are actually now two shortcuts that have been created. You can see I've got two different versions. By clicking on either one of these, I can actually launch Microsoft Flight Simulator or Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. So essentially, although I do have the application installed twice, it's actually an easier way of doing it. Once you've installed that piece of software, you then need to install the second piece of software, which is called the Mobiflight connector. Now, this is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to show you some of the challenges that I had with this initially. So when you start up the Mobiflight connector, it will prompt you that there are modules that have been found that require upgrading or installing. So first of all, we need to select on OK, open up the project page on Mobiflight, and we can start by first of all clicking on open, and then we need to then locate the downloaded configuration files that come provided with the actual Mobiflight application. So in this example, what I'm going to be showing you is how I get things set up personally, which is actually by using the actual A107 FlyByWire software on the A320, which is in the Microsoft Flight Simulator application on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Now that's what we're going to be using in this particular example. You can see along the bottom here that we have a few different messages. So first of all, we can see that we have connected devices. So you can see we have the Rowsfire A107 here, but we need to click on this because it's not going to appear that way for you when you initially actually launch the application. So I've got a couple of Arduino devices attached to my PC. One I've got here is actually a SIM flag box. Now I've ignored that by ignoring the following COM ports, which is COM port 14, which is what that box is attached to. Ignoring that for a moment, and I'll come back onto COM port so we can just show you how you find the relevant COM port for the device that it's attached in a moment. What we're interested in here is obviously the Rowsfire A107 version 3. Now, it wasn't initially showing. It showed as an Arduino device, so this is a good example as to how it will show on your system initially when you get to this stage. And the actual section we're looking at here, it shows that the actual COM port in use is COM port 9. And I'll show you again in Device Manager how we ascertain as to where to find where the device is connected to. But to get it to actually be seen as the Rowsfire A107, we first need to actually install the firmware on it. To do that, we click on Update Firmware, and you can see here that it's instantly detected the device and it's flashing the firmware because it already knows that is the device and what the device is. And you'll see that'll take a moment, and then once complete, it shows it was successful. However, to actually get it to flash correctly, it comes up with a number of different options for the device type. Now, the device type that you would have to select is actually the Mobiflight Nano for this particular piece of equipment. And there are probably 4 or 5 different options. I wasn't too sure which option to actually choose, and it took me a bit of trial and error to get the correct device selected to be able to be seen correctly to actually work. Now, once we've done that and the device is connected, look at the actual status indicators at the bottom just here. And you can also see that there is a red exclamation mark because the binding of the controller has an issue. So first of all, we can see that we have the correct module detected, which is obviously the Rowsfire A107. And then at the bottom here, the SIM status is correct because there are no applications running. So in other words, we don't have Microsoft Flight Simulator running, and we don't have any aircraft detected either. If we click on the exclamation mark, it then shows what the actual error is. So we've got on the left-hand side here the controller used in the project, which is the actual project we selected with a configuration file, but we don't have an actual controller bound to that. If we click on select controller, we can see everything that's connected to the PC. But if we actually select the Rowsfire A107, you can see that these two will then match. It also has a serial number there as well. If we click on apply changes, you can then see that the SIM status then changes. What we can then do is proceed to actually test the box itself. And to do that, if we actually double click on it, you can see at the top we have a number of options. If I actually click on test, it then runs a test that actually does alternatively run the actual functionality on the box itself, so you can see it's working correctly. And I'm just putting that on screen so you can see that now. Before we do that, as mentioned, we need to check Device Manager. We need to see which COM port our actual device is attached to. You do that by right-clicking on the Windows Start menu and then selecting Device Manager, and you can see it will then bring up a list of all the devices that are attached to your PC. And if we scroll down this list and we look for the section that says Ports, COM and LPT, if we expand this, you can then scroll down and we can see that attached to COM port 9 is a USB serial device which is known as CH40, and this is actually our Rowsfire device we have here. If we look at the other devices attached, we have other devices which are also the Moser devices, and of course to identify this easily you can simply pull the USB connection out, the device will disappear, you can then reinsert it and the device will reappear, and it's an easy way to identify which COM port is in use if you have a number of different devices attached. So we are sat on the runway at John F. Kennedy Airport, and as you can see we are in the FlyByWire A320, and of course we are not using the Tobii eye tracker in this example. I'm using the mouse to navigate around, and the reason for this is because I want to show you how the incredible Rowsfire control panel synchronizes perfectly with our overhead panel that we can see in the game here. So of course down here we have the Rowsfire panel, and I'm going to give you a quick demonstration as to how everything is synchronized perfectly with everything that we can of course see in the game itself. So I'm not going to run through everything, just going to give you a couple of examples here. But first of all, to get this running, we need to run the actual application, so the actual Mobiflight application, and then once we're running that, I'm showing you on screen a demonstration of this. We then need to select run, and that will then bring everything to life that you can see here. I'm just going to give you a couple of quick examples. Of course, you all know how to start the aircraft up. I don't need to run through everything, but I'm just going to show you a couple of features rather than going through every single button on here. I can assure you that everything is super tactile. So of course, if I just press the landing flap 3 button just there and enable it and disable it, we can see that synchronized on screen there, just as one example. You can see obviously that's illuminated as on. If I then turn that off, hold it down, you can see that then disables. And these are just super tactile as well. Of course, the quick press isn't going to do it, as in real life you would need to hold it down for a short time to confirm that particular action. And the same with the oxygen crew light there. If I simply hold that down to deactivate it, you can see obviously that didn't deactivate below. So starting above just here, let's look at the actual navigation knobs first of all, and these are super tactile. And not only that, these actually look, I would say, just like the ones just you can see above on the actual real aircraft there. So just as a couple of examples, let's say turning those around, you can see there obviously that is lining up perfectly. And of course the same with the buttons above. See, if I hold that down, you can see obviously that illuminates, and you can see it hopefully on screen as well above that. And if I then activate the second one just there, obviously then the third as well. And again, we're just pressing some random buttons here just so I can give you an example on screen as to how everything appears. Of course, a really nice one to be able to demonstrate to you, it would be obviously the fire checks. So simply by holding that down, you can see obviously that's illuminated on the actual box itself there. And then again, if I move a pan across a little bit just here so you can see a bit more clearly, and then press the second one again. So everything is immediate. It's lining up perfectly, it's lining up immediately. Of course, we've then got the readouts on the actual battery 1 and battery 2 here. And again on screen, you can see that if I pan around, so you can see that in the middle just there as well. If we move down to the lower section here, let's have a look at the navigation lights. So one thing I have to mention is that when you do actually launch into this, you have to make sure that these lights are actually off, because of course if you launch into the game and one of these switches in the upper position, then it would be essentially not functional, or we can't go any further. So just to show you a bottom here, as I flick my finger up, it's immediate. You can see that on screen. There are 3 sections to this button, or 3 actions to this button. So 1, 2, 1, 2, as you can see there. And then on this one we've just simply got 2 actions, up and down. On the next one we would have the wing lights there, so up and down, and then on the end again just 2 actions, or 3 actions, sorry, in this one. There's 3. There is 3 actions, but it can actually only go 2 actions in the actual cockpit itself, so put it into the center, I'll just switch it off, just there. Again, the tactile functionality of these is actually superb. It is really, really nice, and everything just lines up perfectly, as you can see on screen there as well. We've got the center APU master switch and the start button here as well, and I'm hoping you can see that that is on there, and you can see that it's off on screen. I'm not going to turn it off because obviously we need the power to perform the functionality we're doing here. And if we pan across to this side, again you can see everything is perfectly aligned to how everything appears on screen as well. So you can see just by turning that there, everything is immediate. It really is an absolutely incredible piece of equipment, this, and again it's superlative. By turning the wipers on, again just turning around to the actual view just here, turn those off again just there, I'll turn them faster, I'll turn them off completely. again, it really just adds an absolute next level of immersion to the actual in-game experiences. Of course, we're not just utilising this with a startup procedure. Of course, we have the various other functionality that we may use obviously in-game as well. Just as a dramatic example, let's activate the actual fire extinguishers now, and those do actually pop out on the panel itself as well, as we can see there. So that's the end of our demonstration actually within the game. Of course, I'm just going to reset those extinguisher modules there as well, just by pushing those back in. And of course now the audible alarm is sounding within the actual aircraft itself, indicating obviously that the fault is now in place because we've activated the fire extinguishers. So to wrap things up, stepping outside of the usual content was definitely worth it for this one. The Rowsfire A107 A32X Max Lite overhead panel completely blew me away. From the build materials and the actual functionality in the FlyByWire A320 and of course other aircraft, it brings an exceptionally high quality to your home cockpit that you really have to feel to believe. If you're looking to take your Microsoft Flight Simulator setup to the next level, I highly recommend checking this out. You can also use the link right down in the video description below to grab yourself an exclusive discount off your order. As always, if you enjoyed this video or found the review helpful, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content, and let me know down in the comments what you think of the panel. And I'll see you guys in the next one.